Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It is no secret that Ocarina of Time is my favorite Zelda game of all time. So I thought it'd be fun today to rank every single Ocarina of Time dungeon on a little tier list we have here. So yeah, I've played through this game all the way through probably 6 times and I've 100% it, I think, twice. So yeah, I love this game. I know like the inside. I know this game inside out pretty much. So yep, I think we're gonna check out these dungeons, see which one's the best. So we're gonna start off in order with the Great Deku Tree. Obviously, honestly, people might be like, "You're crazy for that," but I almost want to put Deku Tree in S tier. But hear me out. So the reason why is I think it's the perfect dungeon, like a perfect starting dungeon. It teaches you how to do stuff, but doesn't do it to where it's annoying. And it has some good puzzles, and it's just like the atmosphere. Like this, like you when you enter this dungeon, you know, like, oh man, if this is what this dungeon's gonna be like, just imagine the rest of them. Like the atmosphere in this dungeon is so good, and like the spider webs, and like a big thing that stands out for me in this dungeon is the boss fight. And so I remember years ago when I played this game for the first time, going into the room to fight. Well, okay, spoilers by the way. I'm gonna have spoilers in this probably. But going into the room for the first time to fight, Goma. Like I remember the first time I went in there, I was like, what do I do? I was running around forever. I'm like, it's just a dark room with spider webs everywhere, but I hear a noise. I didn't even think to look up. Looking up and like seeing Goma's eye just on the ceiling, and then like the whole room lights up. Dude, it was perfect. Perfect. I sound like that mean Homelander meme, but it was so cool. And then the item in this dungeon you get is a slingshot, which is also really cool. And it's been in a bunch of Zelda games now as well. I think this was the first one that had it though, I believe. But yeah, shooting the eyes, like it was the first time we ever had puzzles like that. It's like, oh, shoot the eye to open the door. It's like, oh, why who would even think of that? It's like, it's genius. But I really like this dungeon. I think this is like the perfect way to start a game. Just go into this dungeon. It's perfect. Just the atmosphere, the theme, the boss fight, the music, which also adds to the atmosphere. It's like not even music. It's just more like sounds almost in like a sounds with a melody. I don't know. It's really cool. That's why I'm gonna put that in S tier. Next up, we got, what do we have? Where's the Donko's Cavern? There it is. The Donko's Cavern. I might put this one, I think I'm gonna put this one in A tier, honestly. Maybe B. I will say the big standout of this dungeon is the huge Dodongo skull on the wall as soon as you walk in. That is like, it's so cool. That's the thing, I feel like the child dungeons had like a lot more personality to them. They're just so good. But yeah, this was the second dungeon. The item you get in this dungeon was the bombs, which is kind of cool, but we already had the gauntlet to pick up bombs. It's just, oh, now we have our own, so that's kind of cool. I would have preferred something different maybe, but it's still neat. Some of the other rooms, however, were not as cool. I do remember the room with the stairs really stood out, and where you had to bomb the stairs and they would just like fall to it would lower the staircase for you. That was really cool. I will say though, the atmosphere in this dungeon, it's not as good as the Deku Tree, I don't think. It's still so good. The music with the little, I don't even know, like, it's like a, kind of like a hissing sound or something, like the, I can't do it. I'm not even gonna do it. I'm just gonna embarrass myself. But the sound of that, it's something just like, oh dude, it sounds like I'm in a volcano, or like in like a, like, it just made it feel like I was in like an area that was like a fire area. It was just so cool. And then like the cool part of like the bombing of the Dongo's eyes to open the path forward. Like I had no idea that's what I was supposed to do, but that was so cool with his mouth open. You're like, oh, there's more dungeon behind him. It's so cool. And then the boss fight, the Dongo, he was okay. He was okay. He was a little easy. I do remember his room was almost the same thing as Goma. How like, oh, what do I do when I come in here? Because you go in and you're like in a little room, like a cave room. But you have to bomb the floor. There's no like little thing like notifying you to bomb the floor, except like it's like a little pile of something, but it's hard to tell. But then you fall down into like the Dongo's like lair, and it is just so cool. And then like he rolls around like a Goron too, which is kind of ironic actually. I feel like they could be friends. But yeah, I think I'm gonna put this one in B. I might move that one up later. So let's see. Next up we got Jabu Jabu. This one is like aesthetic wise, like the way it looks, really cool. Playing through it, not as much, but I still really like it. I think the worst part about this dungeon is probably escorting Rudo around, but once you know what you're doing, I remember getting stuck in this dungeon the first time because it's actually very confusing if you don't know what you're doing, but once you know like the path to go and what to do, very easy dungeon. And it's a very short one too, actually. There's a lot of rooms in here that you really just don't even need to go to, if I'm remembering correctly, or if I'm remembering correctly. The atmosphere of this one was really good too. You're like inside a giant fish. It's freaking cool. The theme is not as memorable, so that's like one downfall. The item in this dungeon though is really cool. The boomerang is awesome. I love the boomerang, and the mini boss is actually really tough. I actually been playing through this game again recently, not too long ago, and the mini boss, the Octorok guy, he's actually pretty tough. It's probably one of the toughest mini bosses in this game, I would say. He's not like, oh, get the Liz Alphos in this one, where they just kind of sit there and let you hit them, and when they hit, just shield, you're good. This one, like, you had to like watch out for like the spikes on the middle platform, and then like you had to watch out for the Octorok running into you. There's just a lot going on. And then the boss fight. The boss fight was really good, and it was really tough too, actually. I remember, it took me like 6 tries to beat as a kid the first time, but when I beat him, it felt so good, dude. But yeah, I think that's why I'm gonna put this one in B tier. If the music was a little bit better and the layout of the dungeon was a little bit better and not as tricky, I think I would have ranked it higher. But yeah, I think B's good for it. Next up, we have the Forest Temple. I believe that's right here. Yes, looks like it. S tier. Actually, it's going above the Deku Tree. I think this dungeon is probably the best dungeon in Zelda history. I freaking love this dungeon. Like the theme, dude, as soon as you enter and you hear the theme and like the little, it's not the chanting, it's like the little, I don't even know, it's like, I don't even know what you would call like the hoo-ha, hoo-ha. It's so embarrassing. But dude, it's so good. The theme is so good, and that's really what makes this dungeon stand out so much, is the theme. But then you go in, and it's like an old temple just in the middle of like in the center like of the Lost Woods. Like maybe not the center, but like deep in the Lost Woods. And it almost feels like it has like a museum aesthetic to it, kind of. You have like the paintings with the pose, and then you go down in the room before the boss fight and you have like the red carpet and stuff. And like I think you have like at least the boss room has the gates. I don't know what they're called. Like they have like the red gate thing. I don't know how to explain it. But anyways, the boss fight also is really good in this. I don't think this didn't have a mini boss really like the other dungeons. I think the mini bosses were the Stalfos that you fight, and then the pose. Those are cool. Fighting the pose was really cool. But then fighting Phantom Ganon, you're like, oh crap, that's Ganondorf. Oh wait, no, it's just Phantom. That's the first time we fought Phantom Ganon, I believe, in a Zelda game. And man, it was so cool. Having to shoot his paintings, it almost had like a Mario 64 theme. It's like, oh, he's coming out of the paintings. But then it would throw you off and he would come out of multiple, so you had to guess which one he's coming out of. Dude, it was so good. The boss fight, actually, the first time I played through this game, I had a friend of my brother's beat it. I actually didn't beat it the first time. But yeah, dude, another thing about this dungeon, like you get the bow, which is already a really cool item. And then you have the rooms that like twist the floors around. And then the wall masters are terrifying. They add to the atmosphere though. Like the wall masters are so creepy. But yeah, this is the best dungeon. I think this is personally my favorite dungeon in Zelda history. I just love everything about it. There's no flaws in this dungeon to me. All right, next up, we have the Fire Temple. It's right here. I believe this one is the weakest. I believe this one is the weakest of all the dungeons. Every room pretty much looks samey. You got like that brown cave look with the fire. And there's like nothing too special about it, really. The cool room, I do remember, like one of the cool rooms is the room with the bars and the fire would chase you. That room was really cool because I remember there's one room I think with a dungeon map where you can go in and like you're looking through the bars, and as a kid I remember looking, I was like, oh wow, is this like, am I looking outside? Is this like outside the dungeon? But actually that doesn't make sense because you're like below the volcano, so how would that make sense? And then I like Free the Gorons was kind of cool, but it kind of got a little repetitive. So, and then like the I will say the theme in this dungeon with the chanting is awesome. I wish I wouldn't have taken it out, but the chanting was so spooky and it actually added atmosphere to the dungeon. But then they removed it, and it kind of took the feeling away. Then the mini bosses too. I'm not a big fan of the mini boss with the he like skates around the room. He's just more annoying than fun to fight. So wasn't a fan. And then the hammer, you get the hammer in this dungeon. It wasn't, it's cool, but I don't think it's really useful outside of the dungeon other than like certain spots. Well, I don't know. I guess it kind of is sometimes. Yeah, maybe it is now that I'm thinking about it. But it's not nothing too crazy. I mean, it was kind of cool. It's a hammer, but I would rather just use my sword to fight stuff, and then like you only really need it to break walls or stuff. So I mean, it was okay. It was an okay item. But then the boss fight is probably the best part. It's like whack-a-mole but with a dragon, and it's so cool. So I think that's like the thing that's holding this dungeon up, keeping it in a C and not lower, is the boss fight is so neat. And like that room he's in, like just so much about it. Like I remember playing it when I was a kid, like that room just felt so much bigger. Like going back now, it's really not that big, but like you have the platform in the middle with like the whack-a-mole, hit the dragon's head when he pops out of one of his holes, and then you'll knock him out, and then you can slice him with your sword, and then he'll come up and fly around for a little bit and throw meteors at you somehow. But yeah, that's cool. And I think another thing, I don't remember if this is actually true or not, but I think after you beat Volvagia, which is the name of this boss, the getting up above Death Mountain, up to the crater, all the meteors that used to hit you there, I think they disappeared. So that's cool. But yeah, other than that, like there's nothing too crazy cool about this dungeon, so I think I'm gonna keep it in C tier. Next up, the water temple. Where is it at? There it is. People may think I am crazy for this, but it's almost an S for me. The only problem, which is why everybody doesn't like this dungeon, is having to put on the iron boots, taking them on and off so many times. But the 3DS version did fix that, but it's very annoying sometimes. But something about this temple, it's just so unique. Like, I will say this, as I've said with all the dungeons, the theme, this one actually might be my favorite. My favorite dungeon theme out of like all the dungeons. It's just so, it's like you're in a place that's like, it's just so mysterious, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. I will say though, the item is a little lackluster. It's just a longer hook shot, the long shot. So I mean, yeah, it is what it is, I guess. But the fight to get it, the Dark Link fight is so cool. Something about it, it's like you enter this room and it feels like think Rom from Bloodborne, I guess. It's like you enter this room, it's like, oh my gosh, this room looks like it could go on forever. It's huge. And then like you fight Dark Link and he's like your shadow. And then after you beat him, like the room changes and it just turns into a normal water temple room. It's almost like you were having a fever dream fighting him. That was like the best part of this dungeon. But I don't know, I just like I like the way the dungeon looks a lot. Like it looks really cool. Like I like the blue, like the water and like some of the rooms. Like I know that most of the rooms are kind of just square. I don't know. And then like the statues with the I think that this might just be one spot. There's like a statue where you shoot with like a dragon's face statue where you shoot the crystal in his mouth, open a door or a gate. Might just be one of those. But yeah, another thing that's kind of lacking too about this, which I don't think is as bad as like some of the other downfalls of some of the other dungeons, but the boss fight here is a little underwhelming. Still not too bad though. I just like how you can glitch him into the corner of the wall and just insta-kill him pretty much. But yeah, that's why I'm gonna put Water Temple in A tier. It's pretty good. Next up we have, I guess we can rank the Ice Cavern in the bottom of the well. Ice Cavern, A tier. Which is actually before the Water Temple, I think, so I should have put that first. Dude, I wish we had a full Ice Temple in this game, because this one is so short. but the puzzles are so good. Using the fire to like melt the red ice was really cool. And like, I always like block puzzles on ice. It's just fun to solve them. And then the little snow guys are cool little enemies to fight. You don't really get nothing here. It's not nothing too crazy. Maybe I shouldn't even be ranking them, but I'm going to anyways. The biggest standout of this dungeon, other than the theme also is really good here. With like, it almost sounded like in the theme, like the crystally sound of like the theme. It almost sounded like, I don't know, it just sounded like ice hitting the ground or something. It just added to the atmosphere of this whole area, this whole little dungeon, mini dungeon. But the big standout for this dungeon for me was the fight at the end where you get the iron boots, the Wolfos fight. Something about that room is just so cool. I mean, the Wolfos is like, it's just another Wolfos. Like, that's cool, I guess. But it almost felt like you entered a room and you were in space or something. But yeah, I enjoy this. I prefer this over some of the, like, I would rather go here than the Dongo's Cavern. Yeah, I would rather go here than all those. It's it just makes me sad we didn't get a full version of like an ice temple. But yeah, I'm gonna put that in A. Next up, another thing too. I usually hate ice levels in video games, but this one like is for some reason proves that ice levels can be good. But yeah, I just wanted to add that. All right, next up we got the shadow, or the bottom of the well, which that's right here. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, that's it. Nah. This one wasn't like the ice caverns for me. This actually is pretty weak for me. It feels like there's more. I don't know. It feels like there's more optional stuff to do here or side stuff to do here than there is like main objective. Because really, you come here to get the Lens of Truth, or what do you get here actually? I think it's the Lens of Truth. Believe it is. But you come here to get that, and that's about it. Like, you can really get there without exploring like half of the area, if I'm remembering right. There's like a lot of locked doors that you really don't even need to go into. There's just like, oh, the dungeon map is in here, but you really don't need it. It just felt like it was put there just to have something like the ice cavern, but it's just not nowhere near as good as the ice cavern for me. Probably the weakest part of the game for me, so that's why I'm gonna put it in C tier. Next up, Shadow Temple. Shadow Temple is gonna go in low A for me, I think. Yeah, I think that's good. I don't know. I was gonna say it, but like I was gonna say low A, but I don't know. Let me just think about it first while I'm talking about it. I love the biggest standout of this dungeon is at the end of the dungeon when you're riding the ship with like the bird statue on the front of it, and you fight the Stalfos. That part was so cool, and like hearing the little dings of the bells when it sails. It's so cool. This one did have some pretty good stuff in it. The mini boss, which actually I should have mentioned in the bottom of the whale, is that freaky, I don't even know what he's called, that creepy guy with hands in the ground, which gave kids nightmares. I actually didn't find him as scary as I did like Goma the first time. That was more terrifying for me. But yeah, he's in the Shadow Temple and the bottom of the well. He's really cool and really creepy. Then you get, I think the item in this dungeon is the hover boots, which is also really cool, but I think that's also another reason I don't think I'm going to put it as high as some of these two. The hover boots are okay, but they're not my favorite. And the boss fight here was actually really cool. So the boss fight is Bongo Bongo, and like him just playing his little bongo with his hands, and like he has like his big. I didn't realize this until recently. He's actually a decapitated person. I thought he had like that big old eye was his weak point. That's just his neck hole where like a head used to sit, and he's been decapitated. I didn't know that, which adds to the theme of like a prison torture chamber of the Shadow Temple. He was like tortured, so it actually fits the theme really well. And I don't really remember the theme as much from this dungeon, which is, I think it's similar to the Fire Temple actually. It's kind of underwhelming. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't know. I'll probably have it playing in the background while I'm talking about it. But yeah, the Shadow Temple's pretty good. The torture traps were really neat too, like the guillotines on the ceilings that you had to roll under, and the wall masters were back. Although I didn't have as much trouble with them as I did with them in the Forest Temple. And then the Grim Reaper guys with the scythes in some of the rooms. It just really added to the whole torture chamber of the the Shadow Temple. So the aesthetic of the temple is really cool. Definitely unique, and definitely something we haven't seen in Zelda in a long time, actually. Be cool to have something like that come back. But yep, so I'm gonna put it in A tier, bottom of A. Next up we have the Spirit Temple, which is the last temple actually, and I'm going to put that. Where should I put it? I feel like low, under the Shadow Temple, low A, high B. So at first this used to be way lower for me. This used to be my least favorite temple, but actually going back recently and playing it again, it's way better than I remember. The kids section is kind of cool. It's not as good as the Ice Cavern. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. Oh, never mind. For some reason I thought you were Kid Link in the Ice Cavern. That's not right. Bottom of the well. It's definitely better than the bottom of the well, the kids section of Spirit Temple. The theme in this one, really good. The item is also really cool, the mirror shield, even though it's not really useful outside of the temple. Yeah, I used to like, the puzzles in this temple were just kind of like confusing. I think that's why I didn't like it as much. Like I always got stuck here a little bit. But everything else about this dungeon, like the big statue in the middle, that really stands out. I don't think it has as much stuff as stands out as some of the other ones, like the Grim Reapers or the Dark Link room or something, but it's pretty cool. And then like the mini boss is the Iron Knuckle, which is actually probably my favorite mini boss next to Dark Link. They're really cool. They're freaking strong too. But yeah, I like the wait, did I say, what did I say they were? The Iron Knuckles. I forgot what they were called for a second. They're really cool. And the boss fight is actually really cool too. Twin Row. You know what? Ooh, I don't think I'm gonna put it above Ice Cavern. I really like Ice Cavern. I think I'm gonna put it right here. I think it actually beats Shadow Temple for me. Really cool. But it was just so cool how like, oh, I'm a little kid and I get to experience this dungeon, but I'm gonna come back here later and see how it's changed. It's such a cool idea. I like how like after the Fire Temple they were like, oh, before the Water Temple you gotta go to the Ice Cavern. Oh, and before the Shadow Temple you have to go down the well. And then the last dungeon you come to the same dungeon but as a kid and an adult. They just had like a little like pre-dungeons almost for the last three. So yeah, the Spirit Temple is really cool. I think that's good right there. Next up, the Gerudo's Training Grounds, I believe is what this is called. I don't like it. I did it once. You really don't need to do it. Like I don't need to do it at all actually. And it's just more tedious than it is fun. And you get the ice arrows, which is cool, but they're pretty useless in this game. So I think D tier is good for that. It's probably my least favorite dungeon type place in this game, even though it's not really even a dungeon. It's just like an in-game thing to do. Then we got Ganon's Tower. Oh, dude, I forgot about this. Okay, so this one's cool. So first, I'm gonna put it here for right just a second while I'll talk about it and think of where I'm gonna put it, because I actually don't know. So the first half of this dungeon, you're breaking like the seal to get into the second half, which is how you get up to Ganon. And to do that, you have to go into each of the 6 rooms that are themed after the dungeons that you have been in. Well, except the light one, because the light medallion was just given to you. It's like a room per stage, I guess. But fun fact, I'm actually not sure if this is. I've heard this. I'm not 100% sure if it's true or not. But when you go into the forest one, instead of it being like the forest temple, there's wind and like you use your hover boots and stuff. And apparently, before the forest temple, we were supposed to get a wind temple, and that's why the forest medallion looks like a fan almost. And then I think the water temple had more ice sections, so maybe we were supposed to get an ice temple too, but time constraints like cut it. Maybe, I don't know. And I think that's the only ones that were different. The first half though is like it's okay, but going to see all the old dungeons themes again and seeing like that wind area, it's kind of cool. It's probably the weaker part of this dungeon. I love the second half of this dungeon is going up the spiral staircase and hearing Ganon's organ playing getting louder the closer you get to it, while fighting a bunch of like the strongest enemies you fought previously. If it wasn't for the first half being like kind of boring, I probably would have put this a lot higher. The second half of this dungeon really carries. Going up this spiral staircase is just so unique, and right before you get to Ganon, like the organ is just going crazy. And then Ganon's fight was really cool. It was super fun. It was kind of Tennessee-like, which we get a lot now. But it was the first time they ever did that. Well, I guess they did it in Link to the Past, but that was 2D. First time they did it in 3D. So it was pretty cool. And then escaping the castle was kind of boring. Didn't really like it as much as the castle was collapsing. But then Ganon was a great final fight. It's just so epic and so intense, like an intense way to end like the long journey. So I think that's why, if it wasn't for the first, man, I'm gonna put it in a high. I'm gonna do it high. Yes, I think this is good. I think this is good. I think it's gonna be my tier list. Yep. All right. I think that's it. Every Zelda dungeon ranked from Ocarina of Time. So I think I'm gonna end this episode here. Let me know down in the comments which you would rank the Ocarina of Time dungeons. And if you haven't checked it out, I did a video where I ranked every single Zelda game. I will leave a link in the description for that. Thank you guys for watching. If you have enjoyed, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. We also play games on this channel as doing other tier lists and such. But yeah, I think that'll wrap it up. So thanks for watching.